Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. This is our second meeting of the King County Regional Homelessness Authority Advisory Committee. So we are definitely officially underway now, having our second meeting. I just wanted to, as we kick off today, remind you I'm Jeannie McNabb. I use she, her pronouns. And currently, I'm King County's project manager for setting up the Regional Homelessness Authority and so far staffing this committee along with several other colleagues who will introduce themselves on this call. I just wanted to remind people because this is a long meeting and we are doing it over the lunch hour. And so I just want to remind people you should feel free if you need to eat. I know I have my afternoon caffeine and chocolate here with me because that is typically how I start the afternoon. Please also just feel free to do what you need to take care of yourself during the meeting. If you need to step away to use the bathroom, I know since most of us are working from home, people may need to attend to pets and kids, and they sometimes pop onto the screen, and that's all welcome here. So I just want to make sure people know that. We typically start these meetings with a land acknowledgement, and I had put it out in an email to all of you to see if somebody wanted to do that, and I didn't hear back from anybody, but I did just want to see if somebody would like to do that as we kick off the meeting. I see Christy raising her hand. Thanks, Christy. Do you want to unmute yourself?
I will. Would you allow me to get an eagle feather?
Sure.
Pardon me.
Colleen, if you could mute yourself, please. Thank you.
Colleen, it sounds good, whatever you're eating. Aho, family. My name is Christy. I am an Assiniboine Native woman. I'm an enrolled member of the Fort Peck Assiniboine Reservation in eastern Montana, and I welcome all my relations here today. I'm proud and honored to be a member of this advisory council. I come here to do my best today, as we all do. And we would not be able to have this meeting if it wasn't for the Duwamish people whose land we're holding this meeting on. And even though we're at Zoom, we're in our homes or in our offices on the very land that they hold sacred and hold dear. And as members of this advisory council, we're reaching out to do our very best for our neighbors and our relations that are not housed, or unhoused relations. And so today what I'd like to do, and this is totally off the cuff for me, so I let grandfather lead me, is to ask a blessing and say a prayer. If I had smudge, I'd be burning that right now, and send a prayer to grandfather and to all the great spirits that we honor our mission and honor our relations and honor one another in the respect and the capacity that we have, in the natures that we have, in the service that we have to give one another, in the service for our fellows here today for the King County Regional Homeless Authority Advisory Council. And in my language, we say thank you by saying Punami Yaya. So Punami Yaya. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Christy. Really appreciate you stepping up. So our plan for you today is stumbling through my words here. So we thought we'd start off with introductions just to remind each other of who we all are. And then we have the outgoing co-chairs of the Continuum of Care board, Colleen Echo Hawk and Sarah Levin here. And they have just wanted to meet you all and share some words of wisdom. And no doubt they have much information, probably more information than anyone else on the screen about what this work actually entails. So it'll be great to hear from them. And then we'll start, just continue what we started last time, which is work on getting to know each other and building trust, and also learning about the responsibilities of the Continuum of Care Board, as well as the King County Regional Homelessness Authority Advisory Committee. And with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Claudia and Marcus just to lead us through introductions.
Jeannie, were you going to take roll, or is that going to be part of
I think we're going to wait to do that until we're kind of officially underway for the after we're done onboarding, Carrie.
Hello, everybody. We're just going to go around and share our name and gender pronoun for now. So whoever wants to kick us off, and please don't allow there to be any airtime to linger. Just be ready to share your name and your pronoun, and we'll just keep it moving. I'll go first. My name is Claudia. I use she, her pronouns.
My name is Tamara. I also use she, her pronouns.
My name is Noreen. I also use she, her pronouns.
Marvin Futrell, he, him pronouns.
Jesse Benet, he, him pronouns.
Robin Tatsuda, she, her pronouns.
Sherry, she, her pronouns.
Dan Burton, he, him pronouns.
Kelly Brown, she, her pronouns.
Brianna, she, her pronouns.
Marcus, he, him pronouns.
Christy Hamilton, she, her pronouns.
I'm Lise Casper. I use they, them pronouns.
Jonathan Hemphill, he, him, his.
Hi, I'm Marisol Tapia. I use she and her pronouns.
Michelle Valdez, I use she, her pronouns.
Sarah Levin, I use she, her pronouns.
Colleen Echo Hawk, I use she, her pronouns.
Sinead Colston, she, her pronouns.
I believe we might have someone who's both in Zoom with their camera and who's called in on the phone. So if you can, I think *9 helps you raise your hand and I can go ahead and unmute you. So please let me know if that's one of you on the phone.
Karen Taylor, I'm a woman.
So, Carrie, I see a hand up in the attendees.
Yep.
I think that might be Linda.
Yep, trying to allow, okay. I'm trying to unmute you, Linda. There you go. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Linda People, she, her.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Is that everyone? Are we missing anybody?
I think that's everyone, Claudia. It looks like Christina is not here, and Jenna and Nawish to me are coming a little bit late today.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for introducing yourselves, and welcome to the space.
All right. And with that, I am going to go ahead and just Colleen Echo Hawk and Sarah Levin introduce themselves. As I said earlier, they are outgoing co-chairs of the Continuum of Care Board. And we just wanted to make sure there was kind of even just a little bit of a formal handoff as well as an opportunity for them to share any wisdom they have for all of you as you come into this role.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank you all for being here. Thank you to Sarah, who's been my co-chair in this work for the past many years, actually. And we just want to share with you a little bit about what this group and what the Continuum of Care Board really brings to the whole picture of of our response to our relatives who are experiencing homelessness. I'd like to share just a little bit about how I got involved. I had started at the Chief Seattle Club. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Colleen Echohawk. I'm an enrolled member of the Pawnee Nation. I belong to the Uprod and the Athabascan people of rural Alaska. And for the past 20 years, I've been an urban native living here in Seattle. And I became the executive director of the Chief Seattle Club, which is a human service agency that serves American Indian and Alaska Native people experiencing homelessness. We also build housing and have all kinds of programs and do great, amazing work. And when I started at the Chief Seattle Club, we didn't have any United Way funding. And we didn't hardly have any funding. Our budget at the time was less than $500,000. Now our budget this year is $17 million. It tells you a little bit of where we've come from and where we're going. And I was desperate for funding, and I had a case manager. Our first housing case manager was a Native man, and we had no money to keep him. He was a MSW student. So someone said, you should go to United Way. So I went to United Way, and I met this guy named Vince Manuelitos, who was so gracious to me. And because I had no idea about the whole system of homelessness and homelessness advocacy and policy. I just didn't know anything. And he said, Colleen, I think you should come and present to, at the time it was the Committee to End Homelessness. So I came and presented what I knew about the work that we were doing. And then like the next week he said, Colleen, I think you should join this board. I had no idea what the board was. I really didn't know. All I had was trust in a strong ally who said, you know, we recognize that Native people have the highest rates of homelessness in this county, also around the country, and we think your voice should be there. And so that was at least 6 years ago. I have been a board member ever since, and have learned so much from a couple people on this call. So hi, Michelle. And I think that is, and Sarah, I can't see anyone else on the call at the moment, but we really learned, I really started learning about this. And the reason I share the story is that at the time there was very little representation from the community, very little lived experience. I don't think there was anyone with lived experience when I joined. And it's been it was very confusing actually for a very long time for me, because I just didn't know that world. And the reason I share the story with you all is that we really have shifted in our philosophy as a community, and I'm so grateful for it. Our Lived Experience Coalition, our Lived Experience members really are pushing forward and helping lead the work in a way that we just have never done before in this community. And I am so excited about it. Have never been so excited to step off a board and turn it over to all of you. I think when, just a little context of how exciting this is. So you'll hear much more about this, but you are all now a part of a HUD mandated board. And there are boards like this all over the country. When I started, I think that I was the first Native person on any of these boards around the country. I've talked to other people about it since then on the national level. And now I think that we have at least three Native people who are on this board. And that is huge. We need to I want to just celebrate that, and I'm very encouraged by that in the way that our system is moving. Do we have a lot of need for more change? Absolutely. We've come a little ways, but I'm excited for you all to take it even further and punch it forward. And I just want to say that one thing I didn't realize for a long time is how much power is actually in this board. You are going to be given funding decisions that are millions and millions of dollars. And I will tell you that we have had a very difficult time in changing how that funding is distributed. You're going to hear about point systems. You're going to hear if we change this, if we make a shift in this, if we decide to fund a smaller, BIPOC-led agency, we might lose points. It is time for us to lose points and get the job done and show the larger community what we can do when we have true diversity and lived experience leadership. And so I just want to encourage you all to really push the boundaries as these funding mechanisms come forward. really know how much power you have in this committee, and lead the way. This is truly unprecedented around the country, and I am so excited. Well, there's a couple cities that are doing it like we are, but we're really in a very exciting opportunity. I'm very excited that we have hired Mark Dones. They are incredible leader, and I think that we're in for something really exciting. So I want to offer myself as a resource. If you have any questions or you would like to meet about what this Continuum of Care Board is all about, or the advisory committee, please reach out to me. I'll drop my email into the chat. And I just want to thank you for your service and get ready for a really exciting time. Please, please, please push harder than we've already gone, because we have so much more work to do. And I'm so thrilled for your leadership. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to my dear friend and colleague, Sarah.
Thanks, Colleen. It's always so hard to speak after Colleen because she's so motivating and impassioned and hit all the right points. But I'll just add, I'll add my thanks to all of you for embarking on this journey together, and as part of the new Regional Homelessness Authority, holding a really, really important role. And it's a dual role in many ways, and I'll talk about that in a minute and re-emphasize Colleen's points. But for those I don't know, I'm Sarah Levin, and I lead all of the externally facing work at United Way of King County. And it was Vince on my team who all those years ago met with Colleen, and we were so proud to sort of stand beside Colleen and learn from her and become a funder of Chief Seattle Club and a partner in crime and advocacy on multiple fronts with Chief Seattle Club, and I think with many of the organizations also represented here. So I've been in the funder world for a while in various roles. I was with the City of Seattle for a number of years, and mostly with the Human Services Department and the Budget Office, and then moved to United Way about 8 years ago. And in all of those roles have either been staffing someone who was on an iteration of the leadership board for the Continuum of Care, or myself was on it when I joined United Way and got to serve alongside Colleen as the co-chair of the board. And up until now, it's always been a fairly confusing structure or lack of structure. And in part because the Continuum of Care board holds these dual roles. As Colleen said, you all are doing this HUD mandated work that I know you're going to learn more about in much greater detail, I think, from Michelle. You're doing this HUD mandated work that has a specific set of activities and things that you are authorized and in charge of doing and approving. And there's this sort of informal, at least in the past, kind of informal advisory role. And in the past, the HUD work was pretty clear, but the advisory role, the way that the homelessness governance work was structured, there was no one really to advise. Like, we didn't have, as a board, we didn't have the power to say, you city must do this, or you county must change this policy, or you funders must do this set of investments. And so any advising we tried to do kind of fell on deaf ears, if any ears at all. And so one of the beauties of this creation of the Regional Homelessness Authority and a really specific structure with really deliberate, thoughtful bodies, governing bodies with specific roles, was the creation of this advisory committee, who actually has entities to advise and has authority in ways that we did not in the past. And so for those who, and I know many of you sat in on the last few meetings that Colleen and I co-chaired, where we were trying to get this slate, this amazing slate of individuals approved by the full board. We had some stops and starts, and it was tough and it was confusing. And so I'm really excited for kind of this restart with really different group of people. We kept saying, like, let's ensure that the new advisory committee represents lived experience really strongly, is a diverse group geographically, is a diverse group in terms of background and what sectors and work experience or volunteer experience you've had, and is not, quote, the usual suspects, right? Because the same 10 people have been sitting around the same table for 20 years, bringing a very specific perspective, but not bringing the broad, diverse and lived experience perspective that you all are going to bring to the work. So I'm really, really excited for the work to start. And I will just, echo what Colleen said, own your power, right? Challenge the process. Don't just, have a blanket approval of a $30 million application to HUD. Ask questions and ask, why aren't these organizations funded, or why isn't this the focus or priority for the funding? And do that, and it will be a really rewarding experience, and it'll be far more. It'll have far more impact, I think, than we were able to have as a really good, dedicated, hearts in the right place board, but we just weren't structured in a way that meant that our voices carried in the way that I think your voices can carry. So I like Colleen, I'll post my email in the chat, happy to be a resource. And I think we're both happy to answer any questions, but you will be getting much deeper information and education about the HUD specific role. So I won't pretend to try to answer questions about that, but I'm happy to answer any other questions that you all have about context or history or anything like that.
And I would just say people should feel free to unmute themselves and jump in with a question.
Christy.
Hi, thank you so much, Sarah and Colleen, for introducing yourself, and I'm so glad to see you here. I was one of those people that tried to jump on and thought, how the heck are we going to follow in these footsteps? The question I had for you is, I think you're answering it, and as we go along, I think I'll get a better understanding. But it looks like the HUD-mandated board is the Continuum of Care portion of the board that we're going to represent, and the advisory board component is going to be separate but together entity. Is that correct? Can you address that a little bit, please? Thank you.
I believe that's correct, but I think Michelle will probably be sharing more with you about how that's all going to work. Is that right, Michelle? Or Jeannie?
Let me find my mute. I mean, yes, a little bit, yes. I mean, yes to all the things, and we will definitely talk about more in our last session together, Christy, around like what it means in this advisory committee role. I also think a lot of it is new, as Colleen and Sarah just said, and not having the staff of the regional authority in place yet, but soon, which we're very excited about. But we will be talking through as much as we can. And one of the things today I was going to say to all of you is I haven't been involved with, to be honest, with this structure in a couple of years. And so I am going to help the discussion around like what questions you all have. And if I can't answer them or Jeannie can't answer them in today or in the next session, we are definitely committed to making sure that we bring somebody back for the third meeting who has been more involved in sort of setting up the structure to help answer those, and or making sure that as Mark and the staff come on board at the authority that they know exactly what support you'll need to feel confident in your role.
Question. I have a housekeeping question, if I may. Okay, I am one of the lived experience people on the board, as well as a Native American woman, so I'm really grateful to be going forward in this. This is a housekeeping question. I was unable to complete the online documents that were needed. For some reason, my Dell does not like Google Docs, so I printed them out. All I have is an email to send to Zenita. Where would I mail these two completed forms, the W-9 and the direct deposit form? If you could put that in the chat, I would be grateful, please, and thank you.
Jonathan, I'm assuming you can respond to that.
Hey, sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Yes, hi Jonathan, it's Christy Hamilton. I had emailed you regarding the forms that you sent us. I was not able to fill those out electronically, so I printed them out, and I need to mail them old-fashioned snail mail. All I have is Zenita's email address. Do you have a snail mail address for me to mail those forms into you?
So we do not have a snail mail. I think what you can do is I sent you Anita's email, and she's kind of like she's a direct type of person. So if there's like let me say this, like movement issues or like things with transportation, I think that she'd be willing to come down and just directly get it to you or help you fill it out herself, because she's done a lot of casework and stuff like that. So that's just her style. If you really do need that, what I can send you the address to our fiscal agent, which is building changes. But I'm just thinking that the snail mail will be so long before you'll receive your stipend. So I think it'd be best if you just get in touch with Anita and she can just process that immediately and get you all set and straight.
Okay, I could also hand deliver it myself. I do have transportation capabilities, but we can talk about that in an email later if you like.
All right.
So,
Awesome.
thanks, Jonathan. Thank
No
you.
problem. No problem. Does anyone else have any questions on that? Because I know I sent out a reminder.
I got a question about it. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I got a question about it. So can you elaborate on what that's all about? Because I didn't get forms, or I don't know what I think it's Christy was talking about. Can you elaborate on it?
So I sent out everyone, and like piggybacking off of email chain, I sent everyone out a W-9 to fill out and also a direct deposit form. If you did not get that form, please let me know and I'll re-email that out to you, just to fill out and then send in to get your payment process.
So I think you guys already have my information and building changes. So will that suffice?
I believe so. If we already have it, hold on, let me see. Oh wait, is that Karen? Yes, yeah, we have your stuff.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Miss Taylor, we have your stuff and you're ready to go at any time.
And I just want to check in just while Colleen had to drop off. Sarah's still here. If there's any questions, we want to make sure we ask of Sarah before she needs to drop off for her next meeting.
Well, one thing I would like to thank you for sharing your words of wisdom with us. And I love the fact that both you and Colleen are telling us to push hard and to challenge the systems and you're speaking my language. That's exactly what I want to do. And that's my intention of being on this board. So thank you for that. I'm very excited. And part of the learning process was sitting in on some of those meetings when they were doing the selection process and just seeing all the political back and forth and delays of getting the process going was very frustrating. So it helped give me a nice introduction to potential frustrations. So thank you so much. And I'm just excited and wanted to say that.
Thank you so much. And I'm so glad you're part of the team here. And yeah, I mean, I think, again, the opportunity to start from scratch and rebuild or build a system from scratch allowed us to really think through what wasn't working the last time around and what needs to go differently this time. So I'm excited for you all.
I wanted to say thank you to Sarah and Colleen. I mentioned a comment a direct message to Colleen earlier, but I want to say thank you to both of you for taking us this far and really pushing so that we could have this team together, you know, of all of the different people that are here today. Just so many different facets that we I guess represent in our communities, and it's very honored to be sitting here and listen to the guidance that you're giving us. So I'm glad you're giving us this time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sarah. It's Marvin Futrell. I guess my only question is that I jotted down for myself was, how did you guys deal with the language that's often presented in the work that we will be addressing when it doesn't address the problem, but just simply serves as a function or a form?
Hi, Marvin, and thanks. That's a really good question. And I think my short answer would be that we didn't deal with it. And so, again, opportunity for this group, stepping into this work at this time with the backgrounds and expertise that you all bring, and the place that you're sitting within the larger governance picture. I think you have again a huge opportunity to bring those questions and those thoughts, and where there need to be challenges, to bring those challenges, and where you're probably going to bump into, if not resistance, you're going to bump into more complexity, maybe as you bump into kind of the HUD side of it, right? Because HUD really prescribes so many steps and restrictions or direction around the money that this group will be making decisions on. And I think you will need to all both rely on the staff team that's supporting you, who will be hopefully deeper immersed in the HUD work, but also really rely on asking questions and not settling with, well, this is how it's always been done, and explain why the HUD dollars only go to permanent supportive housing, and explain what the risk is if we were to do the point in time count differently, because that's another thing under your purview. Explain what this language means and how we can interpret it. And, you know, if Colleen were here, she's done a really beautiful job of that at Chief Seattle Club, and just as an advocate in the community, for not accepting at face value the, well, HUD says this, right? Or Commerce says this. And it certainly makes, it can be challenging. And certainly as a funder, I want things to be simple and easy and know, here are the guidelines. But the right thing to do is to say, well, why those guidelines, and what does that language actually mean? And how do we ensure that we are meeting the needs of the folks that we are here to serve?
Thank you.
Any final questions or comments for Sarah?
I really like what Marvin said. That language is huge. And will we have the authority? Will we have the power to be able to change the language? Because that's going to take doing that. And as leaders in so many areas here in Seattle and King County, and as leaders in the number of homeless people in the country, we have a perfect right to be able to step and say, we're not meeting the needs. This is what we have to do. Will we have the ability to do that, Sarah? Do you see us being able to meet that challenge?
That's a great question. And probably yes and no, right? And I think, again, I think the world around us is evolving really quickly. And I think you're doing this within a new structure that is being built, or that was built, but it will be, what is the metaphor? You're not quite building the plane while flying it, but you are sort of putting the, you know, the seats in the plane, or, you know, doing the, adding the amenities to the plane as Mark comes on as the leader of the RHA. And so I think there is absolutely opportunity to shape what your voice is and how your voice influences both the bigger system as well as the resources that this group controls. And again, just reminding you, and I am a fan of the bureaucracy in many ways. I was in city government for a long time, and I'm a fan of challenging the bureaucracy, right? I'm a fan of ensuring that the public has access to the resources that public systems are set up, and I'm a fan of ensuring equity, particularly now in access to those resources. So I guess my piece of advice would be, given that sort of yes and no kind of answer, I think the work that you're all going to be doing together over the next few meetings, both to learn the context that you're operating in, but also to get to know each other, I think that's super important. And the more you all can get to know each other and sort of form as a group, and you're not just a group that comes together once a month or however often, you know, for meetings to get information on things, like that you are actually a group with a voice. taking that time to form, I think, is really, really important, and doing that alongside understanding the context that you're forming in. So that would be, I think, another piece of advice that will, again, strengthen you within, within this new context that you're operating.
Can I ask a question too?
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I would like to know, because for me, emails and things like that are not the way I want to learn. I would rather
Sounds like maybe there's some technical difficulties. Can you all hear Karen, or did she? Okay.
like
Oh, there, Karen. Just so you know, you're dropping in and out a little bit. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. You dropped for about 10 seconds.
Oh, I was just saying this, everybody doesn't learn and understand things the same way. And so if I am supposed to read a bunch of emails and stuff like that, that's not the way I want to learn. I would rather have verbal communication with somebody on what's going on so that I know that I understand it.
So this is Sarah. I'm thinking that wasn't a question for me, and that now is the time that I probably need to jump off and let you all continue with your meeting. So I'm going to look to Jeannie. Is this an appropriate time for me to jump off?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yes, thank you to all of you.
Thank you,
and
Sarah.
have a good rest of your meeting. And I put my email in the chat, so please feel free to use me and Colleen as resources. Take care.
And then, Karen, to respond to what you were just saying, what I can say to that is, yes, I'm with you on verbal communication. I'm one of the people who feels like it's so much easier to make a phone call, always actually, than write an email. We're trying to just sort of work out how the staffing for this is going to be, but I've absolutely noted this down, and I think that that is something I will pass on to the authority staff, and we'll see what we can do about it in the interim as well. Obviously, with the challenges that we're dealing with of having to meet virtually, which again would not personally be my choice either for how you all would be getting to know each other. But I hear you on getting verbal information as opposed to always in writing.
Yeah, because I think that, communication is definitely the essence of understanding. And I just don't want anybody to be left behind and not fully understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I think that not necessarily a phone call, but I think that someone should be stating things instead of, oh, I sent emails to everybody. And I got the job done. To me, that's not getting the job done. Getting the job done is communicating with everybody and making sure that everybody understands.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. And I see, Christy, that you have your hand up.
Yes, Jeannie, I wanted to ask you, we're going to go forward at some point and not have Zoom meetings. Historically, where has the board met in person? And where do you see us meeting in person when we do resume? Is there a venue that we meet? Do we meet in the city council chambers? Is there a county facility that we meet in, or has that been determined?
So I actually can't speak to what's happened historically, and I don't know if there's someone else on the call that can. There's probably plenty of other people that would know better than me. In terms of moving forward, yes, ideally you would all be meeting in person. And so the Regional Homelessness Authority will be borrowing space at a King County building, at least for some period of time, and that is, I assume, where meetings would take place, but we haven't planned that far out. But there is a physical location for where the authority staff are going to be housed, at least initially, and then at some point, I think Mark and their team will decide if they want to move out of that space and set up something else.
Okay, now that we're in Tier 3 as of today, do we see us meeting as a group for our next meeting?
I think not for the next meeting. So all, at least for county staff and city staff, I think right now everybody's on a mandatory telework through the beginning of July. So we're going to follow, and that's, I think, consistent with many employers in the region. So there isn't a lot of flexibility around using buildings right now.
And the reason I bring that up is just to follow up on what Karen said, that when we meet as a group in person, there's going to be a lot more cohesion, and we'll get to meet each other and form a more coherent group, a more likely group to get together and exchange phone numbers rather than emailing and doing it this way, at least in the beginning. So I'm just hopeful. Thanks,
Yeah,
Ginny.
I hear ya. I know. I'm personally very much looking forward to the day when we're not doing everything by Zoom. So I'm with you on that. What we have on the agenda right now is time for public comment, which is something we would have because these are public meetings. We'd have on every agenda. I actually don't think we have any public attendees today because I think the one person, that's Carrie's saying correct. So I think we do not need to do public comment. Carrie, is there anything else we need to do per OPMA for that, or are we good?
No, as far as I know, allowing the time and the space for it. But since we don't have any attendees, there's no one to make public comment. Typically, so everybody knows, we take about 10 minutes to allow people 2 minutes at a time to speak. And we also leave the chat function open a little bit longer, so folks who couldn't maybe attend at the same time could write in written comment. And we're in the process of developing a little bit more public comment tools for the public as well for future meetings. So nothing today, though.
Just ask a quick question. I heard from a community member that they were having some difficulty tracking when our meetings were happening so that they could join in. What do we have in place, and what can I tell them is the best way to stay informed?
So
yeah. So do you want to take it, Carrie? Or
yeah, I was going to take it just because right now we're posting those meetings as they are set. But one thing that the public can do is they can sign up for blog posts using the website. And when we post the meeting dates, that will automatically push out those dates to anyone who's signed up for the blog. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
So
Yes.
It's kind of an automatic email to let people know. People can always check the website, but again,
Okay.
it's not as proactive.
Well,
Yep.
and I'm glad you brought that up too, because what I'm trying to say is not that I don't enjoy the Zoom meetings. I do. I'm glad we're having them. What I'm saying is that some of the context needs to be reiterated verbally during the meeting, whether it be on Zoom or when we finally are able to meet in person. And when we talk about the public comment and the public understanding of what we're doing, traditionally, these meetings have always been in secret, and the community never knew about it, and they still don't know about it. And so we got to do a better job of making sure that they understand what's going on and that they do have a place for public comment to use their voice, to be involved. The system of racism has been operating in this way for many, many, many years. And the money was never discussed to the public. There's so many secrets, and I get upset when I think of doing the same, more of the same. We can get new faces on the committee, but until we change how we are moving, things will remain the same. And I am here to shake it up, wake it up, and make the change, and to be the voice to speak out against what has not worked past.
I just have to kind of piggyback off what Karen's saying, because you guys just said that this was public comment, but yet the only way people have access to that is through the internet or looking on the website or something like that. So I don't know about you, but I barely keep internet in my own damn home. So that's not really equitable. And I think that we need to find some type of solution to make that more accessible, like Karen said, to the general public, because one, people don't know that this even exists. And two, now you're telling me that unless I have a computer or some type of access to internet, that they're not going to be able to comment either. So that's just useless to me.
So I think moving forward, it would happen in person at the meetings. But I will also say that you all do have the opportunity to shape this and how it is moving forward. I think the intent here is to have some sort of regular meeting schedule for you all as well. So that is information that obviously we will put it on the website, but everybody can share that information. So that is the kind of thing I think that is the real opportunity of you all working on this. And I see Marcus has just made a note that Karen is asking for a more transparent process. How do we create access for all to participate? And I would say, like, I think we're relying on all of you, not only to remind us of this, but to do it too, to put the word out to your networks, to communicate with people, to share the information. I don't think, I can say my intent is not to have the process be secret, but I am one person, and I think that is where the collective, there's real opportunity here. Other questions or comments about public comment? Oh, and I see Christy has her hand up, it looks like.
Thank you. I'm going to try and start a precedent by raising and lowering my hand because I have a tendency to ask a lot of questions. The first question is that then I am able to tell people about this meeting and then provide them with this link. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, it's a different link to be a participant. Everyone on the panel gets their own individualized link, and then what we put on the website, and this is something we could send to you all to pass on to people. That's not going to be hard to do at all.
Great.
But
Okay,
that we can send you a link that you can put out to other people to let them know to use it if they'd like to participate.
So all of our meetings then are available for the public to attend. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. And then the second question, I heard something at our last meeting that we would be provided emails, and so we could have all of our documents in a guaranteed email account that would be specifically for this work and this business.
Yep, and we are working on that.
Okay, all right, thank you, Jeannie.
There will be a little bit of a delay on that, but yeah, we're working on it.
Jeannie, if I will, I put another thing in the chat that this committee is unlike any other committee that I've ever seen, is that you have more folks with lived experience than anything else. This is an opportunity for you all to find what works for the community that you all reflect and represent. If it doesn't work, build it the way you wanted to build it to do what you needed to do. That would be my comment, my suggestion. Don't wait for instruction. Build it the way you want to build it for the people that you know need it the most. And then we have to support that. That's the role of this committee, is to be able to do that type of work. So don't wait for permission. You got permission. Just do what you need to do. And so I think that will be helpful in doing that. If this channel of communication doesn't work, build what works. Bring that into the space. Y'all, you are the experts. We're hiring you. You are the experts to help us get to the outcome. So rely on that expertise and don't wait for permission.
So I'm going to need a call-in option and not just a Zoom meeting option. There has to be a phone number to call for people to give. And then I guess another question is, you said there's only usually about 10 minutes and 2 minutes per person. So that means that every meeting only gets about 5 people to talk, or how does that work? Because 2 minutes is at times not enough to say what people need to say. And then if I'm only listening to like 5 people at every meeting, and I'm spreading the word, there's going to be a lot more people that are going to want to talk and speak on this than 5 people at 2 minutes each at the end of each meeting.
Yeah, so again, I think that's something you all have the power to change. So I'm your staff person, which means I'm going to work at your direction. So if I hear from you all, we need 20 minutes or 2 hours or whatever it is for public comment, we will respond to that. And I know I'm relatively new to open public meetings. I just want to let you all know that. And I'm guessing many of us on this call are. So I have learned how to do it one way, just on the fly for the last couple of months. But other than the fact of the meeting being made publicly available and having public comment, I think again, you all can set the tone for that. And if that's something that's a real priority for you, I think that just needs to be part of the agenda, and we can build that in.
Thank you.
And then Shani, I think there is a call.
It's Shanae.
In, oh, Shanae, I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me, Shanae. There is a number you can call in on the Zoom. So that is available now. You can either call in by phone or participate on a computer.
Oh, perfect. So will you email that public link out to all of us?
Yes.
Thanks.
And I want to say too, as we're talking, I'm thinking TV commercial. I'm thinking flyers. I'm thinking making public statements out in the community at Courthouse Park and other places, so that people know that they can get involved and how they can get involved and what's actually happening with this. I don't want this to be another secret group. You know what I mean? I want this to be broadcast throughout the counties or cities that we are affiliated with, where people know that they have a right to help us decide on what we're deciding on. I just think that this is, we could do better as far as information and gatekeeping and effective gatekeeping by broadcasting this wider. And I would love to take part in, you say, don't be afraid to step up. I'm not afraid to speak truth to power. I'm ready. So I just want to put that out there.
I wanted to add too, if I could, I think can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. To add on to what Karen and Shanae is saying, I think once we establish those regular meeting dates every month or whenever we meet, it'll start being known that this is when they meet, you know, and we all spread that word, whether we have flyers or whatever way we want to do that besides internet. Because, you know, when you do that dial-in, because I work with women, you know, that are out there still, and we always do the dial-in. We don't do the Zoom. But you got to always remember, you got to have the passcode and those things written down, and maybe we could put them in little cutouts and hand those out. Now, there's different ideas we can put together to do it, to make sure that we've got the community involvement. So I support you all in that.
Thanks. Tamara, do you have I see your hand up.
Yeah, actually, I was previously I'd been trying to get some focus groups together to kind of get program participants and funders and other stakeholders to talk. That was a couple years ago. So one thing that I've done to help inform my program's improvement is to get comment directly from my program participants, my colleagues' program participants, so that they are the ones shaping how our program is delivered to the community. So if people don't have access to technology, then I would maybe have them submit a written statement. If they know who the representatives are on our committee, then they can submit written comment and we can bring it back to the team, I guess. That's one way of increasing accessibility.
Thanks for that. I am taking notes. I think you all can see me looking down. My pen is moving furiously. I don't know if you can see that, but I just want to make sure people know I'm trying to get all these ideas down. Any other final comments on public comment? Okay, and then I just want
to Wish Tamai has their hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Hey everybody. Sorry to was tardy. Was coming from another meeting. I just want to say, for those who come here for a public comment, if we're not able to answer them within this space, I would hope that we would be able to come back to it. What I've noticed in a lot of spaces is people will come for public comment. They'll say something that tremendously it impacts communities, but we don't get back to it. So I really feel like that's something this group should be able to do. If anybody takes the time to come here and say their piece, I hope that we're able to honor them in their words and honor them in what they're saying, so we're able to answer their questions. If we're not able to do it in that meeting that they attended, that we're able to circle back to them and answer their questions.
Absolutely, like a parking lot.
Yes.
Anything else there? All right, so I think the thing we have on the agenda next is just do a little bit of movement, which Claudia is going to lead us in, but I just also wanted to acknowledge that Jenna has joined us since we did introductions, and Nawish Tamaya as well. Thank you both, glad you're here.
So, hi everybody. I really appreciate this conversation. It is so rich, and I think that the work that you all are going to do together and build on is so important. And I think that it's so important for us to manage our time then together as effectively as possible, so that you can accomplish the work that you think is important and the work that you're going to set out to do. And so it's always this balancing game, right? Because we don't have like 5 hours to sit together. We got X amount of time to be together. So how do we work together to maximize the time to accomplish these really important things? In respecting and living into what people shared the last time that we met, you know, people were like, how do we avoid the Zoom fatigue of just sitting in front of a screen for 2.5 hours? I have a lot of ideas about how to do that. Obviously, there has had to be a shift in my practice as a facilitator of how I used to do things when we were in person to now having to do them in this more challenging way. I think that what makes sense for me is that we take the time to take a break. So I don't know, Jeannie, how much time we would have for a break so that people can tend to their bodies and whatever other needs they have, and they can do their own stretches or whatever it is they need to do for their body to stay engaged and healthy.
Yeah, so how about if we take 5 minutes and people come back at about 1:07? Does that work? And self-directed stretching, movement, bio break, whatever you need, and then we'll pick back up with Michelle talking about an overview of the Continuum of Care in 5 minutes. And I'm going to also take this opportunity to pop off camera for a second.
And I'll pop up a 5-minute timer on the screen so everybody knows.
All right. So as people are coming back, I just want to comment. Ben put a comment in the chat saying he wasn't seeing the advisory committee meetings on the website, and they're under Continuum of Care Board. And I'm going to post in the chat the link to that website, just so if people want to know where that is, they can look it up.
I posted it above,
there.
Jeannie.
Oh, okay.
But that's okay.
So,
I'll repost it there.
Okay, but so if folks signed up for the email of the board of the blog post, they would not see the advisory board meetings.
No, they would.
Oh, but they're not posted.
Yes,
they are posted.
Oh,
so the
okay.
link I just put in the chat should take you to where the posting is. It's not under a post. It's specifically under a tab that says Continuum of Care Board. Do you see that?
I do see that. And
yeah.
I see the. Is there a way to get an email update of when those?
Yes, and I'll send instructions about that, but I can also screen share and show you in 2 seconds. Give me 2.
Sure, sorry.
That's okay. I figure it's good to show everyone right now. So
the same one that Marcus sent? Yeah.
Here is the, can everyone see right now, the Continuum of Care meetings. So this is the Regional Homelessness Authority website. Here under Continuum of Care Board, you'll see meetings and meet. So this is all of your bios, and then the meetings page. So because of Zoom hacking and whatnot, we have to use this little drop-down widget. And here's the login information. You can click this link, use this passcode, and here is the call-in number for everyone who has questions about calling in. It's a little confusing, so we'll see if we can get that cleaned up for the public. And then secondary, scrolling down to the bottom, here it says follow blog via email. And all people need to do is type in their email address right here. And everyone see that at the bottom of the page. And click follow. And when you do that, anytime one of these pages is updated, it will go ahead and send an email to alert people.
It does it for all pages, not just for the updates blog page. Okay.
Correct.
How long
And
is this?
If that's not happening, please let me know, and I'll work with our web designer and make sure that it's corrected.
Okay, thank you.
I did raise my hand. I just want to say too, this is another example of how we need to ask, I don't know if it's the staffing people or whose job it is, but we need to make sure that everybody understands how to navigate the system. Some of us are not as computer literate as others, and we put in our norms or in our contract or our agreement that we would make sure that everybody understands. I don't remember exactly what the wordage was of that contract that we made, but I think it's important that we make sure that everybody understands how to navigate this, and so we're all on the same page and not running ahead of each other. It's very important.
Yes, thank you for that, Karen.
Yeah, and we can do some combination of this in the meetings, and people are welcome. Carrie and I are also available to help with that outside of the meetings as well. I think for us, we just need the like to hear from you all what is needed. Because I think sometimes, you know, it will not come as a surprise to you if we're using this every day. We just forget that some people are not doing this all the time. And so if, Marcus, do you have something, you have a sling on? I just realized. I'm sorry for whatever happened. But so if you like hearing from you about what's needed and like this kind of clarity is really helpful for us, and I want to encourage people to keep doing that, like that we need to know what isn't clear, what needs to be walked through, and that really is how we're going to learn together here.
And so sorry, we don't need to belabor this, but I just went in my inbox and I checked all my email updates I've gotten from new posts, and the advisory board meetings are not coming in with that group. And I've been getting emails from them since January 12th.
Okay, so it sounds like we need to work on that. Thanks for calling that out.
Yeah, no worries.
Ginny, I'll follow up with Antonio.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions there? Otherwise, Michelle is going to start walking us through the overview of the Continuum of Care.
Great, thank you. I just want to say I love this meeting so far already. I'm really glad that Colleen and Sarah were able to join us and kick us off today. I really appreciate them sharing their insights and agree with everything they said, and appreciate how honest you all have been with your questions and your comments and your feedback. And all of that to say, I'm about to just share a bunch of very technical language with you all. Unfortunately, they're in slides that sort of walk through not such exciting things, but I don't know a better way to at least start this conversation right now. And I just want to say I'm going to say this probably 5 times in the next 10, 15 minutes, but this is all just to give you some basic context and framing for those of you who maybe aren't super familiar with all of the different roles with the Continuum of Care, but it is all in service of you just being able to have these same conversations as you go forward, especially as the regional authority staff come on board, and you all get to start shaping what your work looks like going forward. So all that to say, Let's see. If you can go to the, whoever, I'm not sure who's running the slides, but if you could go, I think it's probably Carrie, to the next
Yeah,
slide.
it is Carrie.
Thank you.
Give me just seconds. Taking a second.
Yeah. No problem. Also, I can't always like see all the things and pay attention at the same time. So if somebody's raising their hand, or if somebody else could just sort of interrupt me at any point, that would be fine, so I can see who's got their hands raised. But I will try to leave some time after. We're going to do this in 2 parts today, so we can ask some questions and have a conversation. So just real quick, want to share what we're going to go over right now. Then we're going to take a break and do some team building stuff, and then wrap up today. So for the first part, just want to do some general context setting and framing of the COC structure piece, talk a little bit about the broader Continuum of Care membership, what the overarching purpose and role and responsibilities of the larger Continuum of Care body. And then in the second part today, we'll talk more specifically about the structures for the COC board role, which is you all. So around establishing the board and the charter, designating the collaborative applicant and HMIS, and some of the work groups that you all will be involved in doing. And then want to leave some time for us at the end to talk a little bit about how we're going to spend our time and conversation in our third onboarding session, which I feel like will be a lot of what you've already brought up today in terms of how you all are going to work together with the regional authority staff, with the implementation board, all of the sort of structural things that you all are talking about right now. Okay, so before we go through all this information, I just, again, want to do some framing and reiterate something that I think Jeannie said the last time we were all together. So one, I'm going to go through all these requirements with you today, and just want you to remember you are not expected to know this information right now, maybe not ever in this much detail. You won't be responsible for doing the work of all the things that we're going to lay out. What's going to happen is there's designated entities, there's the regional authority staff. They will be the ones doing all of this work. You get to be in the role of informing, guiding, giving input, redirecting, pushing, challenging, and approving. But you don't need to know all the details of the things that we're going to talk a little bit about. That's why I'm going to keep it pretty high level. If there are certain areas you want to really dive into and understand, we can do that later. The staff at the regional authority will help you do that later. I just want you to know it's important that you understand the bigger picture and context for which all of this work will happen, but you don't need to know all the details. That is what the Regional Homelessness Authority staff is for. And just to say, like most COC boards that you talk to, they will tell you about 75% of the work that is required and mandated by HUD is very prescriptive and very specific, and the staff, the committees or work groups that you all stand up, and all the designated entities will do it. And again, you get to bring your local lens, right? So you get to bring the perspective and experience that you were brought on this board for, and use that to do the informing, the pushing back, pulling forward, listening to the recommendations that are brought before you, and then approving or not what happens. So I just wanted to say all that before maybe I overwhelm you with a bunch of other information. Okay, so to start, when we talk about the Continuum of Care, we are referencing the general membership, unless we're talking specifically about the board. So we use the term COC or Continuum of Care, and that is the broader community, right? So the full membership of the Continuum of Care includes a variety of community partners, organizations, individuals that are interested in working towards or supporting our community's goals to end and prevent homelessness. So when we're looking at the bigger picture, the overarching role and purpose of the Continuum of Care are several things, which include focusing on homelessness issues across the region as a whole, and coordinating and overseeing the development of what we call our homeless response system. It's also setting local priorities and standards. It is responding to the local concerns and issues that are being raised up. It's also coordinating the application for federal funding, and then fulfilling all of the other functions that are identified in HUD's interim rule. Go to the next slide. As you heard me say last time, the three key things that the COC is responsible for doing is the COC operations, COC planning, and designating a homeless management information system entity, and that's the database. So each of these things have very specific expectations and requirements that we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. Go to the next slide. All right, so when we talk about operations, the COC is required to do several things, and several of you may be aware of some of this, and this may also be new information to you, but one of the requirements is holding a general membership meeting at least 2 times a year, and that is in your current charter. And so that is through things like, I believe All Home used to do an annual conference, or some other kind of venue where you bring anyone, and so this is like huge community-wide, bring anyone who is a member of the broader COC membership together to presentations. You can do training there. It's a lot of sharing back, reporting on different policies or procedures that you're working on, and then certain aspects that the membership gets to vote on in general. So that's required at least 2 times a year. The second thing is establishing a board to act on its behalf, which is the advisory committee, which is why you're all here. And we will talk a little bit more about some of those specific requirements later this afternoon. The third thing is adopting and updating annually a governance charter. This was something already you have in place. You've all seen it. This was recently amended and approved by the previous Continuum of Care board, I believe, in December of last year. The other pieces are establishing and operating a coordinated entry system. That is one of the requirements of the Continuum of Care. I'm sure most of you are familiar with what that is, but in general, it's the process in a community to coordinate a fair and equal access to housing resources. So that is what includes doing the assessment and making referrals and matches or connections to available housing resources for participants in your community who are experiencing homelessness, and that is based on your community approved prioritization policy, which is another thing that you all will be talking about and approving. The last 2 pieces are establishing and following written standards, which are required by HUD for each Continuum of Care, and they do the following. They give guidance, explanation, and expectations for Continuum of Care programs and services that are funded through HUD funding. They set standards and thresholds for achieving quality of care, and it documents your continuum's priority, as what I was mentioning with coordinated entry. That is the policy that you have in place that determines like who is eligible before who for different housing resources. And then the last piece of that is evaluating outcomes of projects that are funded under emergency solution grants and Continuum of Care program funding. So those are the 2 big buckets of federal funding that you all are responsible for overseeing. Let's see, yep, that one, thank you. So the second one, piece of the requirements is the planning, right? So for planning, Continuums of Care must do several things, including developing a Continuum of Care plan, which includes the coordination of funding, conducting a point-in-time count at least every 2 years. So I believe King County has always traditionally done it every year. That is something that communities can choose to do or not, but at a minimum, you have to do one at least every other year. You also have to do an annual gaps analysis, provide data for your community's consolidated homelessness plan. You have to consult with Emergency Solutions Grant, which is ESG funding, and recipients of that funding. Again, I know this is a lot of information that some of you may not know what it is, but there'll be plenty of opportunity to get super familiar with all of these different funding sources. And then you also have to have a plan in place to establish performance targets. So that's part of when you're setting program funding priorities, how you determine what are the outcomes you want to see, and then how are you measuring current programs who are funded against those performance targets. And you do that annually as you're determining, I think what Sarah mentioned earlier, like which programs you fund or not fund and at what level each year. So again, all that to say, the designated staff at the Regional Homelessness Authority will coordinate, plan, and execute on these things. The advisory board's role is to inform, make recommendations, make changes, but approve the final policies and processes that are in place. But the staff that come on board will be the ones who are the experts in these and know how to really walk you all through what all of these different pieces look like. Lastly, the other requirement of the three is related to the Homelessness Management Information System, HMIS, which is, again, the local information system used to collect client level data and the provision of housing and services data related to people accessing and experiencing homeless services. All HUD-funded homeless projects are required to participate in HMIS, and that is where you will pull all of the data that you're looking at in terms of performance. So as part of the role of the COC, you must designate a single HMIS and eligible HMIS lead. So in your community, you already have a vendor in place who operates the database, and then you designate a lead entity, and that will be the Regional Homelessness Authority. I believe currently right now it is King County DCHS who is the designated entity for that and manages your HMIS system. Some of the other responsibilities under HMIS include that you all will be responsible for making sure happens is ensuring that HMIS is administered in compliance with all of the standards, that you review, revise, and approve a privacy plan, security plan, and data quality plans, and that they're all in place, and ensuring that there is consistent participation of required recipients and subrecipients who receive HUD funding. So again, your staff at the regional authority will manage most of this. I also believe that you have a work group in place. We'll talk a little bit more about work groups later today, but that is designated and tasked with ensuring this and doing this. And again, part of your role is like approving the plans, staying informed of what's happening, being apprised when there's issues or challenges or changes that need to be made. All right, so I'm gonna pause here because that was a lot of information. So I wanna leave a few minutes for any like questions or clarifications on some of that, but also just curious and would love to get a sense from all of you. How many of you have been involved previously on any of these things that we just talked about? So that have been participating in the general COC membership, have maybe been on a work group or a subcommittee. Yeah, I'd love to like either raise your hand. You can say in the chat or come off mute.
You might want to delete or undo the share screen, then you can see everybody.
Yeah, I saw Jenna. I think you had your hand raised, right? Yeah. Anybody else besides Jenna?
We've got three people.
Okay.
We've got Jenna,
Marvin,
Shani, Christy.
Awesome.
Shanae.
Shanae, sorry, thank you.
Does anyone want to come off mute and just share like how have you participated in the past or currently?
Yeah, I've been part of the one night count several times. And this last year when COVID hit and we weren't able to do it, it raised a lot of heck with people because our numbers were greater than they ever had been before. And so now that it's back in place and part of our purview, every 2 years, you said? That's going to be part of our...
Yeah.
But we can decide whether or not we want to keep that per annum as
yes.
well. So, okay, that's good. Yeah, that's a huge indicator, especially it's a dedicated program here in King County. We've been very, very on top of it for the last, 10 years? Allison Eisinger and All Home. Yeah, so I'm glad to see that that's part of what we're going to be overseeing and helping with. Thank you.
Thanks. Shanae, I saw your hand.
I just sit on multiple boards, to be honest with you. My biggest thing is like just showing like my most recent experience, I think, is the CAA board. I think that's what I'm on.
Yep.
And so just showing up, being a voting member, calling out people's ouch moments. We still have these moments as a group, and so when I hear it or I see it, I call it out. And then just kind of growing and learning, right? Learning from others and growing with them. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be here. I guess a common theme that I do see throughout all my boards is lack of action. And so that's something that I'm really all about, is some action steps, some tangible, smart goals that we will be able to accomplish with set dates and times and accountability, not only to each other, but the people that we're serving, the people that we're representing, you know?
Yeah.
I'm all about inspiring hope in those who don't have none, including ourselves. And so I'm looking forward to just meeting with everybody, and thanks for this space.
Yeah, thanks. That's great. And I'm with you. I love a meeting that ends with action items and things for folks to do. All right, one more. Jen, I saw your hand as well as participated in something previously.
Yeah, so I was on the youth advisory board that helped implemented the youth housing development program back in 2017, maybe. That might be the right year. And in that, there was a lot of crossing between like the COC at the time. There were like general meetings. I will agree that all of the board meetings were a lot of talking in circles, and I'm hoping with this board it'll be a little different. I can tell already that people are really committed to making a difference in how we've been doing things, and I'm really excited for that. I also worked at Roots Young Adult Shelter, so I much been up close with HMIS and that whole mess of a system.
Yep. Thank you. And Marvin, you were on a committee or currently or previously?
Well, I sat on the original group that wrote the End Homelessness plan a decade and a half ago. I offered then what I hear now on this committee, which is folks looking to have a real voice, and that we're actually addressing the needs of the communities in which we work. One of the things I have always noticed in years and years of work is that language and understanding what something says from a federal source and then how to implement it at a local level is usually lost, sometimes in circles of conversations to where we can't creatively think our way out of the box, and many times I find that the committees themselves lack some of the detailed information, which is crucial to being able to say, what's the critical point here? Where are we going to actually say this is good money or bad money, or where is it going to be used? I offer to whichever staff comes on as we add seats on this plane, be really open to making sure that there's a least tangible understanding of the restrictions or prescriptions for how the money in which we will be making decisions over is used. Other than just someone, okay, here it is, everybody vote. It does accomplish the task as it's written, but it doesn't, I hopefully don't think it will meet the intent of the group that is gathered to do this next step of work. So I was concerned early on that we didn't seem to have enough meetings, or as we said, work groups. You said we would talk about a little bit later, which is great because we will need to start boning up or getting an understanding of what it is we're going to be asked to sit in advisory for.
Yeah.
And if we have an opportunity to make change, we need to be able to see where those changes can be made. You know, and where the push, where to pull back, you know.
Yeah.
And being ahead of the game is usually a good start. And it seems that we're a few months already into this year, so we're going to be playing a little bit of catch up so that we can complete tasks which have already been listed out. I've read before over the last couple of months, been trying to read what the Continuum of Care Board was supposed to be doing. And I see a lot of work.
That's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to see that, and I assume that several of you have been involved over the years in different committees or work groups going forward. I do want to be respectful of time. We have a couple of other things we're going to do, and then I will have a little bit more time with y'all before we wrap up, and we will continue this exact conversation a little bit more specifically around each of your roles and like what some of the questions we want to spend time on our third session talking about. So I do want to, I think there was one quick question, and then I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Claudia. There was a question, I had said that the designated entity for HMI, the Homeless Management Information System right now is King County DCHS, which is, Carrie just put in there, Department of Community and Human Services. And I believe, and Jeannie, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is who's administering HMIS at the moment, correct?
Yep, that's correct, Michelle.
Great.
And just so people know, things will likely transition over to the authority in stages, different things at different times, because they have to have the infrastructure and be ready to receive it. And HMIS is likely to be a little bit later in the process versus like coordinated entry, where thinking is going to be earlier in the process. And Marvin, I just quickly wanted to respond to your comment about what are we, I think you said something to the effect of what are we advisory to? And I just want to let you all know, in case anybody didn't hear, on Thursday last week, the governing committee confirmed Mark Dones as the CEO, and they accepted the position right away. And I spoke with Mark earlier today, and we actually had a conversation about this. And so Mark is going to come in. Their start date is April 26th, and you all hopefully will have your first regular meeting starting in May. And that's one of the things I've asked Mark to just be prepared to address and to start engaging with you all on. So because we happen to have spoken on that very topic, I wanted to make sure I let you all know that. Michelle, I see Christy's hand up, and Christy, I'm not sure if that was from before about the one night count or you had another question.
No, it was a question regarding HMIS, and I noticed that Michelle's presentation suggested that the COC had a duty to find an administrator for HMIS, yet there was already an administrator in place, which was the King County DCHS. Do we need to function as that, or is that already in place and that's something that we won't have to worry about as a board? That's already in place?
It's in place with King County right now, and it will transition to the authority when they're ready to take on that set of responsibilities. So it will be fully staffed.
Okay, so then we will at some point need to find a new provider and a new administrator and a new coordinator for those services.
Yeah, depending on how Mark wants to and their staff want to handle that.
Will they still be utilizing HMIS?
That's a HUD requirement, so yes.
So as messed up as it is.
Yeah.
I utilized HMIS with health management information system, and so Medicare, Medicaid, I can understand the and of course we don't want to, reinvent the wheel, but okay, thank you. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
Carrie, can you pop down the slideshow? Do you mind?
Jeannie, I had a question. We were going to take a pause and shift to Claudia to do some team building. I think I just saw you message me, Claudia. Do you want to do that now, or you want me to keep going?
Yeah, so, everyone, what we're trying to balance here is meeting the needs of the group and going at the pace that y'all need and allowing their space for y'all to get your questions answered. And so we have an agenda, but our agenda and structure isn't as important than the things that y'all are asking. And so we're doing adjustments on our end to say what makes sense right now. And to me, Michelle, it seems like it would make sense for the purpose of the flow for you to keep going on your end, and then we can come back to the team building after your piece, if that works for you.
Works for me. That works for the group. Anyone opposed to? I don't have a whole lot more. We can keep going, and then we can stop talking about some of this for a bit. Does that sound good? Anyone? Okay. So with that said, Carrie, would you mind putting the slides back up? And we're starting on slide 10. Perfect. All right. So the last section that I wanted to talk a little bit about today is just more specifically on the role of the board, right? So what that means for you all in terms of delegating responsibility, the work groups, those types of things. And again, so I just want to say a couple of caveats to all of this. So this is, you know, I think this is probably the first time that you all had a conversation together around your roles specifically. But it won't be the last, right? Like, you're going to continue talking about this over and over again. And I am assuming as soon as Mark and their staff are on board, you will do some of the same work again. I imagine you probably do some board retreats to really engage and figure out how you are going to operate and function together. So we're just trying to, again, give you some of that foundation so you have a place to start. Also acknowledging that you're in this weird in-between situation right now, not having staff in place. Ideally that it would be them onboarding you and not me and other folks, but you're stuck with me for now until Mark and their staff get on board. But again, just like, I don't want to understate this, like, you don't have to know all of these things in detail, because there's no way you could with me going over them in 15 minutes. But I think what I already see is it's giving you all really good place to start understanding what your questions are, where do you want to see some shifts immediately, all of those things, which I think are great. So with all that said, I'm going to be sharing in this section a little bit, and then where we're going to spend our third onboarding session together, just generally talking about CLC board requirements and roles, and what, again, like the minimum requirement of what you're supposed to do. And I'm also answering some of these questions, as you can see, based on my understanding from what is in your current charter right now, around how you'll function and some of the structure that has already been either newly amended and put in place with the new structure, or that has just sort of been operating previously in the past. However, as I said earlier, I have not been a part of the process over the last couple of years. I'm obviously not a regional authority employee, so anytime I don't know the answer, I will let you know. And I've already told Jeannie, as you've seen, to feel free to jump in and correct me or answer a question that I may not know whenever it's needed. And then the last thing is, we are definitely keeping sort of a parking lot of questions, suggestions, challenges, ideas that you have that we can't answer right now, and we will commit to you that either we will get the answer to come back to the next meeting with, or I also hope to maybe bring some other folks to the next meeting that may be able to answer some of your questions, or make sure that these things are lifted up, as Jeannie said, to share with Mark and or the implementation board as we need to. So with all that to say, let's go. Oh, you already did, great. Okay, so earlier we talked about the broader role of the Continuum of Care membership, and talked about how one of the requirements is to establish that Continuum of Care board to act on behalf of the COC, and that is you. I just wanted to share this visual again as a reminder of where you all sit in the structure, and that there are a lot of entities that will be doing and supporting the work that you're going to be doing. So including the regional authority staff, as well as all of the designated work groups or new work groups, subcommittees that you all want to stand up. All right, you can go to the next slide. So in basic terms, the Continuum of Care has to establish a board and adopt and follow written processes to select that board, which obviously you all are very familiar with, since you just went through that process to get selected. And also must have a conflict of interest policy in place, which you do currently in your charter. The board also has to be representative of the Continuum of Care, so that means it has to be representative of relevant organizations in your community, projects that are serving specific homeless populations, and at a minimum must include at least one individual with lived expertise. So on that, obviously you all are not only meeting, you're well exceeding that requirement from HUD. I just want to echo, I think Colleen said today when she was doing her intro, like just really how different this is. And I think I said that the other day too, different than any other Continuum of Care board that I have seen or worked with. the fact it usually is the same people, right? The same players sitting around the table for years and years and years that make all the decisions, inform all of the policies and practices. People are definitely including people with lived expertise more and more often, but not at all to the extent that I see is happening here. So this is really very exciting. And I think all of the things that you all have been raising up in terms of you don't want to see the same old thing happen over and over again. You don't want to just keep doing things because that's the way it's always been done is really exciting. And the fact that you have this new orientation, this whole new makeup of your board, as well as a brand new staff and structure coming in to support you, I think you have lots of potential. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Again, as the county's Continuum of Care Board, you are the entity responsible for ensuring that all of the responsibilities we've talked about earlier today happen. So again, providing oversight to the COC collaborative applicants and the HMIS lead, ensuring the operation of the Continuum of Care and HMIS is actually operating in accordance with the HUD's COC regulations, overseeing that there is a strategic plan to end homelessness and that it is updated regularly, ensuring the coordination of Continuum of Care planning activities to further the implementation efforts of your overall plan to end homelessness, and then developing and approving COC-wide policies. So again, usually your work groups will be the ones who are developing policies and procedures and raising that up to you. All right, I will pause. I did see, looks like Karen, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to ask, how do we, even if we're making decisions together, how do we get HUD to adhere to our decisions? Do we have any teeth, to make anyone do anything? Do we have any teeth is my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I will say a couple of things. I think Sarah sort of alluded to it earlier as well. There are definitely some things that you can't, as just this Continuum of Care, decide to change, right? Like there are obviously HUD regulations and mandates that literally require an act of Congress to change. What you do have is within, there are going to be certain parameters that you can locally make decisions around what you want to do and how you want to operate that, right? So like HUD will say, for example, your whoever is your designated collaborative applicant, which we'll talk about in a second, you all get to make a decision around like how you prioritize programs for funding in the community. As long as you have a process to do that, that's what HUD will ask, and then you all get to decide what that priority is. Now, there will be things Sarah mentioned today, like you will probably hear from people, if you change that priority or if you do something different, you could be at risk of losing some HUD federal dollars, and that is just a decision that you all have to make as a community. Is it worth taking that risk? Can you justify what that looks like? How, what boundaries do you want to push? And I think you do have a different level of say on the local level in terms of like how you operate your coordinated entry system and who's prioritized for that. Again, like how you prioritize different programs for funding and what those things look like. You get to make those decisions and recommendations locally. Okay, I'm gonna, hopefully that answered, I don't know if that really answered your question. I think that's gonna be part of your bigger ongoing conversation as a board together and with the regional authority staff. But
we do have a comment that, that says Linda Peoples had asked to explain number 1. I'm not sure if that was covered or not.
Let's see. Oh yeah, probably the one that says providing oversight to the COC collaborative applicant. I will talk about that here in a moment. If that doesn't answer your question at the end, make sure you let me know and we can readdress it. So if you could go to the next slide. Yeah, again, I think I've said this probably a million times today, but specifically what the regulations say is that the COC is responsible for carrying out all the activities outlined in the interim rule, but may choose to assign the responsibilities to another entity such as the COC board, another organization, or specific work groups, as long as all those roles and responsibilities are reflected and outlined in your governance charter. So again, the board's responsible for making sure these things happen, not for doing them. The board can and has designated other entities to carry out the work. And in your case, most of that will lie with the regional authority staff or an entity that they just assign with your approval or with your work groups. We go to the next slide real quick. I'm just going to go over a couple things in the charter and then we'll talk more about the collaborative applicant. So the charter, again, I know you've all seen it. I keep talking about it, but that really is the foundation for how you're all working together right now. So your COC charter has to establish your governance structure for your continuum of care. And specifically, it establishes committees and delegates authority for certain regulatory responsibilities. It has to detail the function of the board and the HMIS lead staff roles and the responsibilities that are designated to each of these different bodies and outline what your decision-making protocols are. It has to be reviewed, updated, and affirmed annually by the advisory committee, which is you. And it has to be developed in consultation with the collaborative applicant and the HMIS lead and reviewed and approved every 5 years by the full membership. So pause there real quick. So as far as I understand, your current charter was amended in December of 2020 by the previous CLC board. So one of the probably first discussions you all will have with the new staff once they're in place is what needs to be changed or revised the next time you iterate that within the next year. And at least every 5 years, that has to go in front of the full COC membership for discussion and approval. A couple of other things that must include a structure and plan for carrying out all of the responsibilities. So all the things we've been talking about, your charter has to just outline exactly who is the designated authority for each of those. Outlines your code of conduct, and also the process for amending the charter that you have in place. We're not going to spend time today, but at our next session, we're going to talk in your charter. There's a couple of sections that are less about the HUD regulations, but more about how you all want to work together. It outlines your mission, vision, a theory of change, decision-making authority. I want to spend a little bit more time digging into that at our next call, so we're not going to talk about some of that today. You can go to the next slide. We will talk about the collaborative applicant. So the Continuum of Care Board can designate an eligible applicant to collect and submit the required COC application to HUD for all of your projects locally selected for funding. So what that means is every year HUD puts out a notice of funding availability for Continuum of Care funding, and you have to designate somebody in your community who is that eligible applicant, who puts out a local RFP, gathers information and applications from projects and programs that provide homelessness services. And then as a collective body, your committee, your advisory committee will review all of those applications and rank them and decide who gets funding and how much funding they get every year. So again, based on your charter, it looks like the Regional Homelessness Authority will be the designated eligible applicant. Right now, King County and City of Seattle have shared that responsibility, I believe, in previous years and currently holds that authority. Some of the things, again, that the collaborative applicant is responsible for doing is designing, operating, and then following a collaborative process and establishing priorities and the rating and ranking process. And also applying for the Continuum of Care planning funds on behalf of the COC. The board's role is to approve the final submission of the application in response to the notice of funding, and then perform any other responsibilities that are outlined in that governance charter. So there is usually a subcommittee. I believe you probably have one that is like the whole focus of what they do is figuring out before the NOPA comes out, like how are you establishing your priorities for this year? What is the ranking and review process? Who's going to be on that committee? And providing all of that back end work that then gets presented to you all to actually approve the final recommendations. I think I have like three more slides, and then I'm just gonna stop talking so we can ask questions. So the thing I keep talking about is work group. So I just want to talk about this for a moment. Work groups are really key here in continuum of care work. So the work groups are usually structured to ensure that either some system level or very specific focus is happening, right? So this is the bodies that are doing the planning, guiding implementation of all of the work that has to be done. So the work groups are the ones doing the brainstorming, identifying issues and solutions. They vet ideas. Really, I like to think of it like they do all the thinking and then they push up recommendations or ask for more information and feedback to the advisory group, who then confirms or approves the policies. Or if it's something outside of the continuum of care purview, I believe this group would then be putting them forward to the implementation board for approval if it's something outside of your purview. And so, like right now, according to your charter, there are 6 work groups that are in place. I'm not sure. I think some of them have continued meeting over the past several months. I'm not sure if they all have, but what they include are the Consumer Advisory Council, the Youth Action Board, System Performance Work Group, the Coordinated Entry Policy Advisory Work Group, the Continuum of Care Application Ranking Work Group, and the Cross-Cutting Policy Work Group. Again, my experience in most communities, and I have participated on some of these here locally. Again, that's usually a mix of providers on these work groups, as well as city or county employees. There'll be people from the regional authority that participate and staff all of these work groups. Each standing work group under the COC has to have its own charter or work plan to guide its work. And it's something, and the priorities, and it's something that you all as an advisory board would have to be apprised of and approve and then updated on a regular basis. And then also as the advisory committee, you have the authority to establish new work groups or subcommittees, including like time limited or ad hoc work groups as needed. And then again, it is the role of the Regional Homelessness Authority staff to provide the support and staffing for all of these work groups. Go to the next slide. A couple other things I just want to say. I think actually that Colleen and Sarah talked a little bit about already, and then we'll open it up for discussion. But just thinking about in terms of your role as a CLC board and how you can show up, really as you're coming together as this group and getting more engaged in the continuum-wide work and with the regional authority. Other ways that COC boards can show up or be leaders in the community, or by just being champions and the voice to build that community awareness that's inclusive of the needs of all homeless populations in the region. So I think this board is a great representation of that, and continuing to identify whose voice is not at the table and how do you bring that in. Also advocating at state and local level around issues that support homeless individuals and families, and participating in or helping lead other regional coordination work around areas or issues affecting the broader homelessness issue that may not be continuum of care specific, but that you feel like as a COC board member, you participate in and bring back the collective knowledge and information to this group. And then lastly, on the last slide, I think communities with strong continuum of care boards really work collaboratively with all stakeholders in the community to convey the interests of and be accountable to the communities that the board members represent. So I think, Tamara, I think you may have been the one that said this earlier. I think you all were invited, appointed to this board because you represent either certain community groups or homelessness programs or people with lived experience or disproportionately affected groups in your community. So it's your job to really be that voice when you can't have everyone at the table. So you're participating in these meetings, taking that information back to your community, getting their input and feedback and bringing it back to this group. Also, having a transparent and understandable governance process is super important. I think several of you have already brought up questions around language, just understanding what things mean, not being afraid to ask for clarification and not just sort of the status quo and sitting here and being that checkbox, you know, like, yep, we're just going to say yes and approve it. Like, really ask questions. And if you don't understand, then the broader public probably doesn't understand either what it is that we're talking about or approving. And then understanding the collective community-wide strategy for ending homelessness is so important. I know there's a lot of other work. There's private funders in your community that do a lot of work and lead a lot of stuff around ending homelessness. Like, how are you all collectively coming together and understanding what that community-wide strategy is? And then working together as a leadership body to make those tough decisions and really push on each other and push on, you know, some of the folks that have been in this community doing this work for a long time that really are used to the status quo and aren't used to being disrupted, and how y'all are going to do that together. I am going to stop talking for a moment. I'm going to look at the chat, see what I've missed. Anyone, I guess, Carrie, is there anything specific you've seen that I've missed, or anyone just want to come off mute?
Michelle, I see that Ben just posted a question. Who exactly constitutes the full COC membership?
Mm-hmm. So that, again, like, is there's opportunities for organizations or individuals to participate in the COC. Like, it's generally all providers, partnerships, community members, and you can participate as an organization or as an individual. There's a lot of information, I'm sure, specifically in the charter. I can't recall at the moment that it describes what that looks like. And if you're part of an organization, you only get one voting right as a member. I also want to acknowledge, like, I don't want to take up all our time, so we do have time for team building, but it was a lot of information. I see Christy's hand at the moment.
This is, hi everybody, this is kind of off topic, but I've been curious about this for a while. You've mentioned the HUD interim rule that we need to abide by. I don't know what that means or where I would find that. I could probably Google it, but is there a quick and down and dirty place I could find that, or is there some place that you can guide me to so I can research that on my own? Because it looks like that's probably going to be important, especially when it comes to the emergency service grant and the COC monies that we're going to have a say in.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you probably don't want to read it. It is long and complicated. But yes, I will send you, I'm going to send all of this information in like a couple of page handout just so you all have it in reference, and I will link where you can get that. And that's what outlines, like, anything that falls under HUD funding is outlined in the interim rule.
It had to be ugly, huh?
If you could go, well, you don't even have to show it. There was one last slide. I'm just going to say it out loud. So again, all of this stuff was super technical today. Like I just said, I will send to Jeannie that Jeannie can send out follow-up information for all of you that just has this in front of you, so you don't have to try to remember what I said. And then at our next meeting, I'm hoping that it is definitely more of a conversation and not me just presenting information. Partly because what I want to spend time talking about is more like your role specifically as this body within the bigger structure of the Regional Homelessness Authority and in conjunction with the Implementation Board. So some of the things I will talk a little bit about is the mission, vision, theory of change, decision-making authority, what is outlined in the charter, so we together can have a conversation. And then my goal is that we can start to talk about, like, what are your ideas? How do you want to see some of this structured? What questions do you have that we can start to raise up to either to Mark and their staff once they get staff on board, or to the implementation board? So things that we didn't get to today, either like feel free to send follow-up questions to Jeannie and or I, or start thinking about them and hold them for our next meeting as well. I just saw one last question real quick about like assigning or choosing. I mean, again, I'm answering this. I am not anyone's boss in this thing, but something just like you all will have a conversation about the committees that, or work groups that exist. And I would imagine that you all will hopefully volunteer to participate or lead on some of them. And then there'll probably be others that aren't existing that you want to stand up as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it, I think, over to Claudia.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for all the information. my head's spinning, so I can imagine that's true of maybe some other people on this call. There's a lot of terminology and, you know, concepts that just seem so foreign. And I can also imagine that all the mental and intellectual gymnastics that people are trying to do right now to wrap their minds around can be exhausting. With that said, I'm going to shift gears really hard, intentionally, so that we're not just using one part of our brain, but we're also using other parts of our brain, and that we're engaging with one another socially. Earlier, people were talking about how, you know, it's easier, better, and more conducive for human relationships for us to meet in person. And I 1000% agree with that. And that we all have different styles of learning and getting to know one another that right now we're not afforded due through the public health crises that we're confronted with. And I also really appreciated something that Marcus was saying earlier. Marcus is my boss, y'all. And I just want to share that Marcus's approach to being my supervisor has always been like, I hired you so that you can advocate and create things and change things. That's what you're here to do. And it has been really liberating and empowering to have, you know, a leader that says, I'm supporting you to create what you think needs to happen. And I think that this group, it's so beautiful because it's the same thing with y'all, right? Like, y'all are brought here and, you know, you're representatives of your communities and you get to create with this space what you see. And it's not like you're asking Jeannie or Michelle for permission to do things, but it's like, what do you think needs to be done? So with that said, we are building relationships with each other here, and we're doing it together. So I'm going to invite you all to participate with me in a few activities, and it's going to take contributions from all of us to be uncomfortable and to do things differently. And it's not just up to me and Marcus to make y'all have relationships with each other, right? We're just holding the space here for y'all. It looks like Marcus is in and out here, so I'm going to do my best here. I'm going to invite folks that aren't on their camera. If you could jump on your camera if you have that capacity, that would be great. I understand that not everybody does. As y'all know, seeing people's face is really conducive to building relationships. And I'm going to start out by going on a whim and inviting 5 people to volunteer for the first activity that we're going to participate in. And after y'all volunteer, then I'll tell you what the activity is about. So 5 volunteers. Okay, I see Karen.
Karen has a hand up.
Thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate your courage. Who can follow Karen? All right.
I see Jesse.
Sherry, Jesse. Great. 3. 2 more. 2 more brave souls. Marvin, thank you. And 1 more person. Noreen, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank y'all for volunteering.
Claudia,
Yes.
I had a question too. I wanted to volunteer, but I also had a question. Well, it wasn't a question, but a comment. Let me know when I can do that.
Go for it.
I just think that we are innovators. We are here to change what hasn't worked thus far. We don't necessarily have to stick to the normalcy of what has been before us. I challenge everyone to step into your leadership and wake this place up. That's all I was going to say.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership in inviting people to be leaders. Yeah. All right, y'all. And we had 5 leaders participate. So looks like we're getting off to a pretty good start here. All right. Bear with me, y'all, while I toggle through my screens here. Okay, so for this activity, Marcus and I are going to start modeling. And one thing that was said earlier was an awesome reminder that we have different relationships to technology. So one way that y'all can change your name and your pronoun, the way that it appears on your screen, is you can go up to the little icon wherever the square of your face appears. And on the top right-hand corner, there's 3 dots. And if you click on that of your own, you can, if you go to rename, you could change your name and put your gender pronouns if that's something that you want to do. I just didn't want to assume that everybody knew how to do that. So sharing those instructions for now. Another thing that you can do is at the top right hand of your Zoom, you can go to view and change the views there. So you can go to speaker view. And for these activities, I think it might be best for you to be on speaker view. And then, okay, our 5 volunteers. Will our 5 volunteers please unmute your mic and take turns. The first person could go 1, the second could go 2, third could go 3, so that we know who's going to be in what order. So go ahead and start by each saying one number to 5.
2.
3.
3.
Oh, 4.
4, and who was our 5th?
Noreen was the 5th. Jesse was 4, and Noreen was 5. I don't know who 1 was. Karen was 2. Marvin was 3. Who was 1?
Gary?
Carrie's 1?
Sherry.
Oh, Sherry's 1? Okay. Okay. Good.
Okay.
Got it.
Excellent. All right. So remember that order, y'all. We're going to play an improv game called This Is Not A. The way that you play is that for Marcus, for example, he's going to grab something near him and say, he's going to say, this is not a pen. This is a, and then Marcus is going to make a sound and a motion. So go for it, Marcus.
This is not a pen. This is a.
It's a toothbrush, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So notice 2 important things that Marcus did. Not only did he do the action, but he also did the sound. I heard the brush, right? So he had to have his microphone on. And after a few seconds of Marcus doing that, so keep doing it, Marcus. The next person, in this case me, because we're modeling for y'all, is going to say, this is not a toothbrush. I'm going to repeat it. This is a kite. And then the next person is going to, for a few seconds, show what I just did. Oh, and I missed the sound. Right? And so on and so on. So whenever number 1 is ready, you can go ahead and get started, and then 2 can kick us off, 3, 4, and 5, and let's just keep going round and round until we say stop.
Oh.
You can pick up with my kite.
Okay. And then I'll say something, right? After the kite.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right. So when I say this is not a kite?
That's right.
This is not a kite. Oh, I don't say that, right? I say
Yes,
that.
yes,
Okay.
yes. You're doing
This is,
You
awesome.
said
okay. This is not a kite. This is a. I don't know what sound. I don't know.
I
You
thought
got
Karen
this.
just said. I thought Karen just said we were innovators.
But I
Say
don't know the sound
whatever
for
comes to
this.
your mind, just say it.
Microphone.
There you go.
Perfect.
Now 2.
So
What
this
sound?
is not a microphone. This is an ice cream cone.
This is not an ice cream cone. This is a flashlight. Beam.
This is not a flashlight. This is a barbell. Clink, clink, clink.
Not a barbell. Clink, clink, clink. This is a fan. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
Excellent. Back at Sherry.
Back to you, Sherry.
This is not a fan. Whoosh, whoosh. This is a cow mooing. Moo, moo.
This is not a cow mooing. Moo, moo. This is a hand clapping.
Well, this is not hand clapping. This is a car. Vroom, vroom.
This is not a car. Vroom, vroom. This is a fish. I'm using props that are nearby.
Finger snap.
You hear that, Sherry? Because you picking it up.
I didn't hear it. Can you say
She
it
said
again?
that's not a fish. This is a finger snap.
Okay. Well, this is not a finger snap. This is singing. La 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 la.
Thank you, Sherry. Last round.
This is not singing. This is a spoken word poetry. We're going to change things.
I hate to say it, this is not spoken poetry, but we are going to change things. But this is a violin.
This is not a violin. This is a tree shaking in the wind.
This is not a tree shaking in the wind. This is an eagle feather to show our leadership. Woo, woo, woo.
Awesome. That was really great. Thank you all so much for volunteering to do that first round, and let's give everybody snaps, applauses, and virtual high fives. It took a lot of courage for y'all to not know, first of all, what you were getting yourselves into, and then to just be put on the spot in front of everybody while everybody watched. See, usually we do these activities in breakout rooms, or if you are in person, everybody's doing them in their own group. This is the first time that I've seen a group do it where only 5 do it and all the rest of us watch. So kudos to doing things differently already and shaking things up. I want to ask y'all a few questions about that activity really quickly, just to debrief. We're not going to get into it super deep, but just get some initial impressions. For the participants, for the 5 of y'all that participated, what was that like for you?
I wanted lots of props. I was ready to
Yeah,
enlist my whole desk.
I like drama. I like getting in there. I don't like, sometimes I'm shy to get on camera because I don't think I look like as nice as I would like to look, and I wish I could just put a picture up, but I cammed up because I want to do something. I want to help make change, and so I think that it was fun, and it was fun to get to know y'all too a little bit.
Thank you for leading through example. And Jesse, most of the time people don't even have props, so you got creative and you had extra edge. Usually people use their creativity in a different way of just thinking things up, but the point is that you were creative anyway. Somebody else, I think that there was somebody else that wanted to share how it was for them too.
This is Sherry. I think making you think of creative things on the spot, kind of nervous a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, and you did awesome. You know, a lot of times people are uncomfortable when they're put on the spot and have to think of something immediately, right? I think last time somebody said something like, "Oh, I'm bad at that." And in reality, you know, we all have different relationships to just being put on the spot, but you did it anyway. Can I ask you, Sherry, a follow-up question? What helped you do it anyway?
Just the fact that I know I had support, and I kind of got out of my shyness when I just kind of felt like that nobody was going to judge me and I can just kind of be myself. That was it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. I would like to ask the participants, the five people. Noreen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I liked the way Karen started getting into poetry until Marvin was doing the tree. And I kept watching for Jesse. Okay, I'm after Jesse. Whatever Jesse does, that's all I gotta do. But it was fun. It was very fun.
Yeah. And one of the observers had a comment. Is that Christy? Did you have something you wanted to say?
I did. Sherry, you rocked that cow. You rocked that cow. And I want to go out to improv with you, Jesse. That was great. Yeah, that was fun. Y'all did a good job. That was great. I enjoyed it.
I just think one of the things I like to say is usually you're given a box and said act within this box. You're never given a blank slate of paper and said just create. And so we stick ourselves most of the time, right? That we have these things that we have to live within, these boundaries, right? So these improv activities to have you come out of that shell to create a new shell about what is possible. Not what can't we do, but what is possible for us. Nothing's impossible for you all, right? And all of your collective experience brings that to fold. And so this is an opportunity for you to think big, be big, but walk in big shoes, right? Because you know what it feels like, and you know what it's going to take to get out of that situation. And so be creative and innovative as possible. Don't stifle your innovation, right? And just keep moving forward. That's the kind of activities that are going to allow you all to flourish in this work.
Thank you. I want to ask the participants the last question. How are you feeling after you played this game?
Good.
I feel like we can do it. Like, you know, it's like passing the baton to each other. It's like, you know, I know, I mean, I don't know all of you. Like, hopefully when we will get to know each other, but I hope that I can count on you. If I pass my baton, I can count on you to carry out my part in your part and all of our parts and make, like, if we're gonna make change, it ought to reflect all of us, like a bouquet or a tree with fruit. Everybody has a part. Everybody has a role to play. Everybody's valuable.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Jesse, I can't really hear you. Seems like your audio's out.
I just put something in the chat. I just want to reflect on what Sherry said because it was really, really, really important. Sherry said it best. She felt like she could do it because she felt supported and not judged. Right? That was so powerful. Thank you for saying that. You didn't even get asked a question. That was called on you to speak it, and you spoke it. Thank you for that.
That's right. Yeah. And Sherry, it's possible that when you were doing it, you probably felt the pressure of time, and you had time. We were going to give you the time until you felt comfortable to come up. So it's also powerful that we slow down and or meet people where they are and give them information the way that they need in order so that they can accomplish what they need to do for this group. I really appreciate y'all. I got lots of those kinds of games in my repertoire, and Marcus and I have done this in many spaces, so we're happy to do that in the future. I was going to ask questions of the larger group, but it looks like we're running out of time here. So I'm just going to shift so that we can get in the final closing comments before we have to end our time together.
And
Thank
Claudia,
you,
there's one comment from the chat. You want to read that?
Yeah, so Brianna, thank you for putting that in the chat. I also, as we close up, I would like to invite people that observed, that weren't participants, to also put their observations in the chat. Brianna said she felt more relaxed, and when we show up here to be professional, which is important, we also have to incorporate ourselves in this group that's just as important, if not more. So authenticity is really, really necessary, right? Even though Brianna wasn't one of the participants, just watching the way y'all showed up helped her feel differently, right? She says she's shy as a participant herself. So hopefully the more that we engage this way, the more that we can start feeling less shy and more comfortable with one another and getting to know one another so that we could feel comfortable engaging and doing really powerful work. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I see lots of comments.
Jonathan wanted to say something before we close.
Yep, I was just going to call that out.
Okay, all right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. I know I've been on camera. I've been trying to eat, snack a little bit, and then I don't have my glasses, so if I look like I'm looking at you like funny, I'm not grilling you, nothing like that. I just can't see that well. I wanted to just take some time out to say that I am thoroughly impressed. I've just been, when I come into a new space, I like to just be quiet and, and analyze and observe. And from what I've seen, I feel as though like this board is it. Like you guys are already thinking about how do we bring community in? How do we be leaders of tomorrow? How do we, make sure that community voice is centered in all we do? And I just want to say that from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you just as a person that's been in the streets and like have lived experience myself and representing other folks with lived experience. It's a pleasure to, see you guys and work and bear witness to your work. And also, as a governing committee member, to you guys as advisory board members to work with you in the future. And I just wanted that to be said. And I don't know if you guys understand before we close out that, I know that you don't have like proper staff from the King County Regional Homeless Authority yet, but I am here as a staff person, almost like your policy advisor. So if you need questions with talking points or anything like that, feel free to hit me up and let me know because I'm here. I'm in your corner. I have lived experience just like you. I'm representing our folks out of the street just like you. And I hope to get to know you even better. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Jonathan. All right, so I think we're just about at time. The next time we all are going to meet together is on April 8th, and Michelle alluded to some of the topics that she's going to cover, where there's going to also be time next time to have fun together and continue to build relationships. I have a couple notes down from this meeting that I just want to reflect back to all of you. So one is that Carrie and I are going to continue working on getting emails for all of you, so you have a specific email for this. That we're going to send out to you the link for public participation in these meetings that includes a phone number where people can call in. I just made a note. I'm not sure exactly the follow-up yet, but Karen's point about kind of advertising these meetings in different ways and in different places, and just encourage you all to do that as well. And then Carrie's going to look into what happened with the email posts thing, where people had signed up to receive the post from the Regional Homelessness Authority website, but it didn't actually remind people of this meeting. So we'll work on that. I will send out notes like I did for the last meeting and include the slides. Is there anything I'm forgetting or any other needs people have that they want to call out before we wrap up?
There is one other thing for folks with lived experience on the board. I'm going to be reaching out to you soon to have a small little onboarding meeting. One, to make sure you guys have that stipend payment stuff situated and everyone's good to go on that. And then also to introduce you to the Lived Experience Coalition and some of the work that we do, so you guys are familiar with that. So look forward for that email. Look out for that email.
And then just one other note, Carrie's also working on a way to make public comment more accessible as well. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Namaste.
Thank you.